On a crisp Wednesday morning at Chicago O'Hare's Terminal 2, the atmosphere buzzed with its usual chaos-rushing footsteps, intercom announcements, and the low murmur of business travelers and tourists alike. The clock read 8:42 a.m. when Celeste Monroe walked into the Horizon Air check-in area, a commanding figure wrapped in navy blue confidence. She didn't strut or posture, but her presence turned heads. Not because she was flashy, far from it, but because she embodied the quiet authority of someone who knew exactly who she was. Celeste was 42, CEO of Monroe Synergies, a tech powerhouse credited with salvaging dozens of near-bankrupt startups and transforming them into lucrative, sustainable ventures. Her reputation preceded her, though she preferred to let her results speak louder than any headline ever could. Her dark brown skin gleamed under the terminal lights, her micro braids were neatly pulled into a low bun, and her tailored suit fit with surgical precision. No flashy logos or designer flaunting, just clean lines, quality leather, and a gold wristwatch ticking in silent rhythm. She approached the Horizon Air first-class counter for Flight 214 to Seattle, phone in one hand and boarding pass in the other. The agent behind the desk, Trevor Maddox, didn't bother looking up. His name badge sat crooked on his shirt and the knot on his faded tie sagged toward his stomach. His fingers tapped impatiently on the keyboard like a drummer stuck in traffic. Boarding pass, he muttered without meeting her gaze. Celeste slid it across. First class. 9:15. Seat 2A. Trevor finally glanced at the pass, then back at his screen. He scanned the barcode once, then again. A wrinkle formed between his brows. With an almost theatrical twist of his wrist, he flung the pass back toward her like a spent receipt. Nope. Not in the system, he said, already reaching for the next customer. Celeste didn't move. It's there, she said calmly. Double check. I did, Trevor replied without hesitation, though he hadn't. You're not on this flight. Maybe you meant coach. He gestured vaguely toward the general boarding line, now swelling with passengers juggling oversized bags and children in tow. Celeste stood her ground. I'm not moving. That ticket is valid. First class. Confirmed. Look again. Trevor leaned in and jabbed at the keyboard a bit harder this time, a trace of annoyance in every keystroke. Ma'am, I'm telling you, you're not on this flight. If you don't step aside, I'm calling security. The people behind her began to grumble. A woman in a designer scarf sighed exaggeratedly. A man in business casual glanced at his watch with the kind of disdain that dared someone to make him late. Celeste kept her voice low but firm. Explain this then. She held out her phone, displaying a Horizon Air confirmation email, clearly showing her seat, flight number, and the Horizon Air logo. Trevor took a quick glance, barely hiding his smirk. Could be fake. Or a glitch. Doesn't match up with what I have. Either way, you're done here. He turned away, already attending to a white man in a polo shirt who received a cheery, "Good morning, sir." That's when Lisa Brenner, another gate agent with her hair pulled back so tight it looked painful, joined him. She took one look at Celeste and frowned. What's the holdup? She's not in the system, Trevor said, not hiding the glee in his voice. Celeste addressed her directly. Your system is wrong. I'm first class. Fix it. Lisa scanned the boarding pass herself. The scanner beeped with a dull rejection tone. She looked up, expression flat. Sorry. You're not boarding this flight. Trevor leaned against the counter like a cowboy who just won a bet. Told you. Step aside, lady, Lisa added, thumb hovering over her radio. Don't make this harder. Celeste's face didn't change. She simply pulled out her phone and, without another word, tapped on a contact labeled M. Rivers. The line barely rang once. Marcus, she said into the receiver, voice a blade sheathed in velvet. I'm at the Horizon counter. 8A7. They're denying my first-class ticket. Fix it. Now. Marcus Rivers, her COO, responded instantly. 2 minutes. She hung up, placed her phone back into her tote, and locked her gaze onto Trevor. He blinked first. Trevor, now visibly sweating, returned to his keyboard and typed with growing urgency. The screen flickered once, then again, then froze. Damn it, he muttered. Beside him, Lisa's radio came alive. Her expression shifted as she pressed the device closer to her ear. Her smirk vanished. What? She whispered. No. I don't have access to that list. What VIP list? Trevor's fingers were flying now, desperate to find some resolution before the whole gate collapsed. But the system was no longer cooperating. Lines of code danced across the screen like a cruel joke. Error messages popped up one after the other. Behind them, the PA system chimed, "Attention passengers. Boarding for Flight 214 to Seattle is currently delayed. Please await further updates." Trevor slammed a fist onto the counter. A kid clutched their teddy bear tighter and flinched. Lisa looked back at Celeste, who still hadn't moved. Her silence was thunderous. Then the crowd parted as a man in a Horizon blazer burst through the gate's rear door. Greg Norwood, the terminal's operations supervisor. His face was pale, his voice shrill with panic. "Miss Monroe? Celeste Monroe." She nodded once. "Ma'am, I'm terribly sorry. There's been a massive mix-up." "Not good enough," Celeste interrupted, her voice crisp and cold. "Why was I flagged? My ticket is legitimate. Why was I denied?" Trevor looked like he wanted to crawl under the counter. Lisa's arms were crossed now, but the defiance had melted into fear. "Two don't know yet," Greg stammered. "Corporate is checking the logs. We're fixing it now." Celeste stepped forward, her presence pressing down like a weighted blanket. "You don't get to dismiss me and then hide behind a system error. I want names. I want answers. Now." The gate was silent. Every eye was on her. Even the irritable businessman had stopped tapping his watch. Greg's radio crackled again. "Monroe's ticket confirmed. CO. VIP clearance. Pull the logs. Get her on board immediately." Greg turned ghost white. "Miss Monroe, please, you're reinstated. First class." "We." "You assumed," she snapped. "That's the issue." She pointed squarely at Trevor and Lisa, who both shrank as if her finger had the power to pierce armor. "They judged. They dismissed. You trained them to assume. That's on you." Greg nodded rapidly. "Understood. Retraining will happen. Today." She hoisted her bag onto her shoulder. Just before walking off, she looked back over her shoulder. "Those two? They're off the floor. Don't let them touch another passenger until they've learned what respect looks like. Make it stick." "Yes, ma'am," Greg croaked. As Celeste walked toward the gate, her steps unhurried and poised, the tension behind her began to unravel. Greg barked orders. Trevor disappeared into the back. Lisa stood stunned, the radio still in her hand but forgotten. Celeste's seat was pristine. A flight attendant greeted her with, "Welcome aboard, Ms. Monroe," her voice tinged with nervousness. Celeste nodded silently, settling into her seat. Her phone buzzed. "Marcus, you good?" "Celeste, yeah." "Made them sweat." Marcus replied with a fist bump emoji. She allowed herself a rare smile, subtle but real. By the time she landed in Seattle, Trevor and Lisa had both been removed from their positions. Greg had already submitted a detailed report to corporate with apologies and action plans. That night, Greg emailed Celeste. "Miss Monroe. Agents reprimanded. Full audit of flagged profiles initiated. Your training recommendations are being implemented across the board. Thank you again for your professionalism." Celeste read it, nodded once, and powered off the screen. She hadn't screamed. She hadn't thrown a tantrum. She had simply held her ground and let the truth rise up around her like a storm. It wasn't revenge. It was precision. They had underestimated her. They wouldn't make that mistake again. She stepped out of the Seattle terminal with the same calm she had carried through Chicago. The sky was gray and damp, typical for the Pacific Northwest. But Celeste Monroe wasn't one to let weather define her mood. Marcus Rivers was already there waiting, leaning against a sleek black company sedan with the engine still running. He wore his usual business casual attire, gray wool coat, button-down, clean jeans, but the grin on his face was anything but casual. "Didn't think you'd make it off that plane without someone's job in your handbag," he said with a low whistle as he opened the door for her. "They're lucky that's all I took," Celeste replied, sliding into the back seat. "You got the footage?" Marcus climbed in beside her, flipping open a tablet. "Everything. Terminal cam. Audio from the gate. Even the glitch logs. Corporate's going to choke on this." Celeste didn't answer right away. Her eyes flicked across the screen, watching frame by frame as her composed resistance unraveled the smugness of two uniformed agents who'd decided her skin tone didn't match their expectations of power. "I don't want a peer circus," she said. "But this doesn't get buried." They didn't just make an error, they revealed how fragile their whole system is when it meets someone they think they can ignore. Marcus nodded, already typing notes into a private company memo draft. Got it. No headlines, just internal pressure where it hurts. They drove straight to Monroe Synergy's downtown office, 33 floors of glass and steel, pulsing with the brainpower of some of the country's sharpest engineers and strategists. By 2 p.m., Celeste was in a glass-walled boardroom reviewing a proposal to acquire a struggling logistics software firm. But as her team presented, her mind drifted for a moment, not to revenge, not to rage, but to resolve. Because today wasn't just about her. It was about every black woman who'd been told she didn't belong. Every quiet genius pushed to the back of the line. Every professional mistaken for someone's assistant or worse, someone's threat. By 4:45 p.m., Celeste had signed off on the acquisition, approved a new ethics audit for their partner firms, and left a note for HR to ensure their company training modules now included real-world scenarios involving bias from external stakeholders. At 6:15 p.m., her personal email dinged. From Horizon Air Corporate at hcn-air.com. Subject, formal apology and executive follow-up. Dear Ms. Monroe, on behalf of Horizon Air, we extend our sincerest apologies for the unacceptable treatment you experienced at our O'Hare terminal on your recent flight. An internal review has been launched. Both employees involved have been removed from passenger-facing roles pending retraining and reevaluation. We acknowledge the systemic failures that allowed such an incident to occur. We invite you to meet with our Executive Diversity Council at your convenience. Your insights could help us improve the experience for all passengers. Sincerely, Bethany Ingram, Chief Operating Officer, Horizon Air. Celeste stared at the screen for a moment. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard before she began typing, not with bitterness, but with clarity. Ms. Ingram, I accept your apology. But change doesn't begin with a meeting, it begins with accountability. I suggest your internal audit start not with my case, but with a list of every passenger flagged in the last 12 months without reason. Review the data. Then ask yourselves why. You don't need my insight to do the right thing. You need resolve. Celeste Monroe. She hit send. Later that night, Marcus forwarded a news link to her phone. It was a quiet article buried deep in a business outlet. Horizon Air confirms internal overhaul of first-class screening protocols following executive incident. No names. No photos. Perfect. Celeste preferred her victories silent, clean, and absolute. As the weeks passed, Horizon's internal systems shifted. Discretionary flagging policies were overhauled. Agents underwent bias training, not the usual performative slide deck, but interactive modules co-designed by Monroe Synergy's consultants. It wasn't charity. It was reparation through systems. Reprogramming what had been left unchecked for too long. Meanwhile, Monroe Synergy's internal report on corporate travel bias was quietly passed along to their closest tech partners, then to select government contacts, then to 3 top airlines through back channels. The ripple spread without press releases or media noise. Just results. One morning, almost a month after the incident, Celeste's assistant popped into her office. You have a package. Celeste raised an eyebrow. From? No return address. Just got this. She opened the padded envelope and found a letter inside, handwritten in surprisingly neat cursive on thick stationery. Ms. Monroe. I was the woman in the cashmere scarf. I didn't say anything that morning. I should have. I watched it happen. I watched them shrink you down to a line of code and a hunch, and I let it go unchecked. I've replayed it since. I want you to know. You didn't just stand your ground. You reminded me I still have ground to stand on too. Thank you. Elizabeth Harmon. Inside the envelope was also a printed boarding pass. Horizon Air First Class. Seat 2A. Celeste smiled faintly, folded the letter, and slid it into her desk drawer. She would never use that boarding pass. But she'd keep it. As a reminder. Not of the moment she was denied. But the moment they learned without question who she was. And that next time, there wouldn't be a delay. There would only be change. Real. Lasting. Earned.